That's exactly what I meant. What did I say? You've changed the definition of pest and vermin to include feral birds. Can I just ask you a wee bit more about that? Because it's a bit of a concern. What does that actually mean?
Feral bird. We've got the definition. Pest and vermin. So what's the definition? You have a document with you. So which is what wild, feral, farm, domestic, anything of cage or feral bird. Generally, feral is seen as a domesticated species, but that has escaped and is now wild. In other words, it's not a native species that is generally always wild. Feral bird is generally seen as, for example, a rooster. Domestic rooster that is now, and you know what happens, people just abandon them in a park and they become feral.
It's too late in the day, but that I didn't understand that from the way I read the report and the bylaw. That feral bird means an ex-caged bird or an ex-domestic bird. So just to, is it too late just to kind of make sure that that's understood in the words used?
Well, all that does is just add to, so I don't see any reason why we couldn't make a note.
In the definitions? Thank you. That's great.
And Councillor Carl, you wanted to have something to say there?
Yes, listen, my indulgence for a couple of seconds, please, Your Worship. And then, if you wouldn't mind, the reason why Member Wilcox is here today is also just to say a couple of words.
Go on. Absolutely.
I just want to say, Your Worship, on behalf, Helgard, on behalf of a number of us councillors today, I would like to really pass my sincere thanks on to you. Your stewardship, your leadership, your professionalism, the way you've conducted all manners of the bylaw work, bringing and helping us together has made our job a hell of a lot easier. And we wish you, although you're not leaving the organisation, thank goodness, you're only moving over to another department, to waste minimisation, but you'll be duly suited for that role as well, I'm sure, and you'll put Auckland Council in good light again. So on behalf of myself and my other colleagues, I have a small gift here to hand to you, sir.
Oh. Glenn, would you like to say something? More than happy for you to make comment.
Just like to say it's been fun working with you, and sometimes it hasn't been fun.
Especially when I disagree with you.
I really appreciate actually that you've understood when I've come to you and said, I want to see something that says Māori in this Bible. I want to see something that reflects the uniqueness of our city and it reflects the uniqueness of Auckland, and which Māori is part of, and you've been able to incorporate that. And I really thank you for that. But also I'd just like to thank you for being a great guy. You're a bit maroke, which is a bit dry, but that's okay. That's okay. And welcome to waste minimisation.
Good, Allegard. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded with appropriate definitions notes to be noted. So all those in favour say aye. Aye. Oh. Oh. Yes, okay.
Mr. Chair, yes, thank you, Worship. I'd just like to thank three different groups of people. The first is obviously the Regulatories and Bylaws Committee, not just in this term, but in the previous term. It's been, over this 5-year period, the Regulatories and Bylaws Committee has certainly stepped up to the plate and done the work. Particularly also then the councillors that served on the hearings panel, and then also the IMSB members that served on the hearings panel. The hearings panel is on occasion a time-consuming and difficult task, and some councillors really stepped up to this and ensured that we were able to deliver the work. And then lastly, I obviously have to thank Councillor Penrose for the guidance and leadership and assistance that he has given us over the years on this particular programme. Without Councillor Penrose and his predecessor, Councillor Morrison, we would certainly have not achieved this, and so I would also like to thank Councillor Penrose. Thank you.
Thank you, and you'll have to excuse my voice. In fact, I might actually ask if Councillor Penrose could introduce, and he can cover off a lot of matters.
I'll do that. So Paul's probably where I was last Thursday, Your Worship. So, look, as you know, councillors, it's self-explanatory in the agenda item here. Although we did, this is an area where we put the delegated authority back to the local boards. And I'm a little bit disappointed, but I have to say that at the last hour now, we're having to take one of our local boards out of this mix at the moment until such times as they go through their process to land at the position that they feel comfortable with. So hence is the amendment put forward on the table today that we exclude Eden Albert from the item 16 and to be reviewed at probably at our next governing body in October. So, without further ado, Mr. Mayor, that's where I'll leave it.
All right,
and just to reiterate around the Albert Eden issue. So it is a matter for the local board to address. And by deferring it to October, it will give them the chance to do that. And just to make it clear that it's just one very specific issue that the board need to go back and look at. And that will come back to October. For the rest of it, there's 9 other boards that have gone through a very robust process, as did Albert Eden as well, to arrive at the decisions they have before you. And they're now looking for the governing body to support them in rolling out their changes by Labour weekend this year. Thank you very much.
To doing a particular presentation, we came along simply because we knew that the governing body had this item on the agenda, and we wanted to be here to answer any questions that may arise. But I didn't realise until I saw the agenda that I expected all the councillors would have had a big pile of every bylaw from the local board and might have some specific questions, but I see that instead the agenda report refers councillors to an online source, so I'm not sure whether there will be the questions. But as we seem to be the only local board that has come along to talk about this, I just might say a few things. Denise actually chaired the process because I thought I might have queered my pitch by making some critical comments about dog owners on a Facebook page. And so no, they got very excited about it. But just to say, as Paul mentioned, it has been a very, very thorough process. We had about 170 submissions in our area, and I understand that's fairly representative. We had hearings where people could come in, and I think, you know, you've got this real balancing act. In our case, we've got these beaches that attract huge numbers of people during the summer. And we also, I think one of the issues that with this set of bylaws that has been something that local boards have had to grapple with is the appearance of increasing amounts of wildlife on coastal areas, which is wonderful, but then it does mean that you've got things to deal with like seals, and in our case seals, and dotterels on nesting on beaches and having fledglings when there are, you know, there might be 6,000 people turn up at the beach. And we've got grey-faced petrels in places on the west coast now who nest in the ground in burrows, which can be crushed by people, but certainly they don't want dogs anywhere near them. And we've got many, many penguins, and penguins, little blue penguins all along our coast who come ashore at night time and who are on shore for considerable periods of time at certain times of the year. So, and then we've got a lot of people owning dogs, and having to balance all those things is something that we've had to grapple with. But there hasn't, the news is out there that we've made our decisions. We've sort of put it out on Facebook pages and in other places, and we put out media releases, and I've been carefully watching the Facebook pages to see if there's a kind of a riot about to descend on us, but it seems to be reasonably well accepted that we've provided decent off-leash areas for dogs, but we've also had to prohibit dogs in some areas because of the wildlife concerns, and we've had to have some areas on leash. So that's pretty well all I've got to say, unless Denise wants to add anything.
Well, no, I think Sandra has covered it, but one of the things that's played to our advantage with the off-leash, shortage of off-leash areas because of the wildlife is that we've got, of course, some regional parkland, and the Kakamatu Inlet, for example, is off-leash. So the rather than being inundated by the dog community coming along to urge us to have more off-leash areas, they in fact left us alone just about, because they were happy with what's been provided and what we were proposing. So we've been pleased about it, really.
But just to say also that we have heard people, for instance, we've extended the off-leash area at North Piha Beach, but we made it on-leash in the Surf Life Saving Patrol flagged area. And people came along and said to us, but oh, we really like taking our dogs for a swim off the leash, and that's one of the lovely things to do. So we went back to the surf club and said, well, do you mind if people are swimming there with their dogs off leash? And they said, no, that's fine. So we've been able to also, you know, respond to things that local people have raised with us.
But one of the overall challenges that we faced was to actually make it simple, and I believe we've achieved that. We've had to increase the on-leash areas and the prohibited areas a little, but we've more than made up by providing much more simple categories and areas, and I think the feedback we've received on that has been also been positive.
We could go away because I don't think they're enough. He says wait. He says wait. Yeah. Oh, okay.
My question is to Sandra and Denise, and that is, when you're grappling with these issues, how supportive have Council's biodiversity team been in helping you identify those areas?
Very, very good. In fact, we had a whole big long session with Tim Lovegrove about the bird issues, which clarified a whole lot of things for us about the kind of areas that we should be trying to keep the dogs out of, and the like. I won't go into the detail because it gets very specific, but extremely helpful and supportive.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's really pleasing to hear, and I hope that we can work with our biodiversity staff in the resolution on the Albert Eden one when it comes back before us, because the recommendations may sit more comfortably with the community. Thank you. I
just wanted to speak as a member of the dog bylaw panel, and one of the reasons we delegated dog access rules to the local boards